Hey everybody, it's Party Elite, and today we're taking a look at a very interesting upcoming game that you may remember from my most anticipated games list of 2020, Immortal Realms Vampire Wars. Pitching itself as a blend of Total War and turn-based and vampires, it immediately had my attention, and I got the chance to speak to the developers and see the game in action a couple of weeks ago, and my attention has most certainly been retained. I'm excited to share what I learned with you today, and later this week, I'll be putting up my full conversation with the developers as well. If you're interested in watching that, make sure you subscribe. And if you'd like more content like this on the channel, make sure you let me know with a like and a comment down below. Enough with an introduction, here are 3 reasons to be excited for Immortal Realms Vampire Wars. 3 factions, 3 lores. Immortal Realms Vampire Wars features 3 very different factions with 3 very different sets of mechanics, 3 different sets of tech and unit trees, and 3 different storylines that are tied together over the course of 3 separate campaigns, each with 4 missions of varying length, a campaign that totals about 20 to 24 hours long. Not only that, they all tie into 3 very different types of vampire lore. I wouldn't say I'm a super vampire nerd or anything like that, but I do like myself a bit of mythology and lore, and I've always found vampires to be fascinating. The Dracul are the baseline faction, simplest to understand, focused around brute strength. They're a bit on the beefier side, capable in melee and from range. There's clearly a tie-in with Vlad Dracul, father of Vlad the Impaler, aka Dracula. This is reflected in their warrior-style approach, a bit more grounded, though of course still magical to a degree. They are still vampires. The Nosfernis, meanwhile, are more bestial and focused on the spread of corruption and the raising of the undead. Nosferatu is a potential connection here. The name might have come from the Greek word nosferos, meaning disease-bearing, or in the case of the game, spreading corruption. Nosferatu might also be a Proto-Romanian alternative word for vampire, as per Emily Gerard. She implies it's a specific type of vampire, a type that turns their victims into vampires after death. And this ties into the whole idea of raising the dead in the game. And then there's the Moroia faction, potentially a reference to Moroi vampires from Romanian folklore. They're sometimes depicted with magical capabilities, and magic is very much their standout feature in Immortal Realms. So these 3 distinct factions featured in the game all seem to be rooted in 3 different mythical backgrounds, and I think it's pretty neat to see the game taking the deeper world of vampires into consideration when planning out its factions. I'm yet to have a chance to play the game myself, so I'm curious to see if there are further connections to real-world folklore. Apart from the objective-driven campaigns with their animated cutscenes and unique rule sets permission to switch things up, you can also play as these 3 factions in the sandbox mode. Hard-based gameplay. Whether playing on the campaign side of things or engaging in battle, the card-based gameplay is a core part of what makes Immortal Realms tick. There's a certain feeling of playing a board and card game with Immortal Realms, from the Lord aspiration that you get assigned when a battle begins, tasking you with side objectives to gain bonuses, to the combat spells that you receive in battle, with a hand of cards that changes depending on the Lord you have leading the army. And finally, even on the campaign map, or the Kingdom map as they call it in Immortal Realms, you'll have access to cards for various types of actions. In battle, the cards cost mana to use and have a cooldown period, but they can be used whenever you want as long as it's your turn. So, for example, you can stack the use of all your cards in one turn, but you have to keep an eye on your mana and the cooldown of cards that might come in handy later in the battle. And mana isn't exclusive to a battle either. It's drained from the army, and it needs to regenerate over multiple turns at the Kingdom map level. That means that you'll have to be judicious with its use if you're about to engage in multiple battles in quick succession. And when your lords level up, apart from just getting better stats, you also get the chance to upgrade their spell cards for use in upcoming battles. This allows you to modify each lord to your liking, slowly upgrading each spell card with variants that can change anything from cost to core functionality of the spell as well. On a Kingdom level, the cards can do anything from heal or upgrade units to recruit new units at a province to, well, I'm not sure what else. I wasn't able to see all of them in action, and there are quite a few, but there are some interesting names on display that, again, I just wasn't able to see the details of. Needless to say, these also come with a cost, in this case, blood, and so you'll have to balance their value against their cost and their later availability, or lack thereof. Beyond that, the game also assigns side quests in a similar card-based way. You'll be challenged to perform certain tasks in a certain amount of time in order to gain bonuses that include more XP or more blood to spend on your activities, etc., etc. All in all, the cards are a very integrated part of Immortal Realms. My fear with them when they were first revealed and mentioned was that they'd feel tacked on, but they are involved more or less every step of the way, and rather than a one-size-fits-all situations approach, it does sound and seem like there's a bit of strategy involved in deciding when and where to use the cards in your hand, be it in battle or when managing your kingdom. On-map resources. I thought the implementation of resources on the kingdom and battle maps was really quite interesting. In battle, you'll find a variety of shrines or otherwise special tiles that give benefits to adjacent units. This acts as a way to influence not just the flow of battle, but also the deployment phase before it begins, driving units to certain hotspots on the battlefield in order to take advantage of what it has to offer. Healing, extra mana for spell casting, extra damage output, etc., etc. These battle maps are handcrafted, which means that you're not going to be seeing randomly placed lopsided shrines and obstacles, but instead carefully planned and positioned elements that should allow both players and the AI to thrive. There are 36 battle maps, but your starting side is also randomized, meaning it's more or less around 72 unique maps to battle on. On the kingdom map, there's the standard money system, represented by blood, used to pay upkeep, recruit new units, that kind of stuff. And like most turn-based games, there's a concept of action points that determine how much any single army can do each turn. Your lords themselves are a bit of a resource as well, since they're the only ones who are able to perform certain crucial actions like claiming new territory, recruiting new troops, or perhaps obtaining power from one of the unique types of landmarks. I'll get into that more in a bit, but unless you have cards that allow you to do certain actions in other places, your lords are an extremely important resource. But the aspect I found most interesting was regarding the various structures that are littered about on the map. Like I alluded to earlier, these landmarks. Both in sandbox and in campaign mode, these landmarks are kind of like the shrines that give various benefits on the battlefield, but instead they work on a kingdom level, giving you additional options for the growth of your kingdom. The keep is your headquarters and capital province, and the place where you can recruit new lords, obviously a province of great importance. But the manor is a necessity if you want to add lords to your recruitment pool, because when you claim a province with a manor in it, you'll be able to turn one of its residents into a vampire to serve you. Cities seem to add to your economy and the per-turn gain of blood to your pool, and blacksmiths allow you to buy items that you can then assign to your lords for various boons. And wishing stones give you access to immediate buffs or added resources, and then there are graveyards, libraries, forests, prisons, and I'm sure even more. I wasn't able to investigate all the kingdom map features during our brief chat, but this is certainly one of the most standout aspects of Immortal Realms, how the map is divided into various provinces and what each landmark does. Each province has a landmark, and these landmarks will directly affect the approach you take to any single game. Will you chase after a certain type of landmark first? Will you actively battle over others? Or will you completely ignore a certain type in favor for another? I'm definitely curious to see how much further this particular element gets pushed. What are the other types of landmarks, both in battle and on the kingdom map? And how drastically can they turn the tide or otherwise change the flow of battle and war at a larger scale? I was very intrigued by my time seeing Immortal Realms Vampire Wars in action. Again, with a pitch like Total War meets turn-based meets vampires, my interest level is immediately piqued, and I think Immortal Realms is doing quite a few interesting things. I asked if there were any plans for DLC, and though there's nothing set in stone yet, the devs did mention the possibility of adding humans as a playable faction if the game is successful, and if there's interest for more content. I'd definitely like to see how the creativity here can be pushed even further. There are a variety of other vampire types in real-world folklore that could be adapted into this world, though I have to say I'm interested in seeing how these three very different breeds of vampires stack up against each other in a fight. I hope this video gave you some fresh information about Immortal Realms Vampire Wars and gave you some insight into how it works and why you might want to check it out. I'll certainly be checking it out some more on this channel when the opportunity arises, so make sure you subscribe if you're interested in keeping up with it. Again, I'll also be releasing a full chat with the developers later this week on Friday, where you'll learn some more interesting bits about the systems and mechanics of the game at play, so make sure you tune in for that. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel on a monthly basis. You keep us alive and running smoothly, and a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.